Hi class, welcome back to our Friday video. I think this might be the last one from the course, although I will let you know if I feel the need for another Friday video next weekend. Right now I'm about 50-50 on that. I do see folks who do need some review, so there may be a video coming up for at least that. But as far as new material, this will be the last Friday video for that. So I hope you pay attention, hope you retain all this information, because you do have your persuasive speeches coming up, and that's what this particular video is going to deal with. You also have, gosh, this weekend you've got your test due. Make sure you do that before midnight Sunday night. You've got a special occasion speech coming up on Tuesday, and you need to watch this video in the meantime. Remember, we've been talking about the syllabus all through the course, knowing that towards the end, which is where we are, there's going to be a lot happening. You've got a lot of assignments, you've got a lot of things to keep up with. It's just the fun of a college course, you know? So I'm going to remind you, as I always say, you can email me, you can call me, you can text me. If you have any questions, concerns, if you want me to check something for you, if you really are having a difficult time, I'm here to help. That's my job here. So let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in class. But for right now, we are going to continue our lecture. This past Tuesday, we talked about persuasive speeches, but it is a good idea to talk a little bit about persuasion itself. You know, how do we persuade people to do things? That's what we're going to be talking about. Let's go ahead and pull up my shared screen. There are a lot of ways that we persuade people, but there are three things we really have to do if we really want to be persuasive. The first thing is we need to build our credibility with our audience, whether it's one person or a whole group of people. This means proving your competence about what you're talking about. And that means that you have the intelligence and expertise, the background information, and the knowledge to be credible about what you're talking about. And then that involves your character, whether or not you come across as sincere or trustworthy, or that you demonstrate goodwill with the audience. So they need to see that they think you know what you're talking about. They also need to see that they can trust what you're saying, and that is all credibility. So there are three types of credibility that occur in a persuasion process. The first type is called initial credibility, and that's the credibility that you display when someone first meets you and starts listening to your speech. How are you coming across right off the bat? Some people, they open up their mouth and wow, that person really seems to know what they're talking about. They seem credible right from the beginning. Some people don't necessarily have that to them, and they actually have to work harder sometimes to become more credible throughout the speech. And that's what we're getting to. Derived credibility is then that the credibility that is earned during a speech process or during a process of persuasion. So all of the tools that you're going to use to build persuasion help to create that derived credibility. The third type is terminal credibility, and it's really the most important type. Terminal credibility is the credibility that you have by the end of your speech or by the end of your demonstration or your process. And that is the credibility that is going to lead to whether or not someone believes what you're saying, is going to do the action that you want, whether or not they are actually going to be persuaded. All right. So when we're building credibility, there are quite a few ways that you can enhance it. First of all, when you're giving your speech, you want to actually come out and explain your competence, you know, say why people should listen to you, why they should believe that you have knowledge. Talk about your background, talk about your experiences, explain why people should listen to you with regard to this persuasion that you're trying to accomplish. You also want to show that you have common ground with the audience, that you have something in common with them. You have a likeness or a kinship that if you believe such and such, they can come to believe it too. If you do something, they can also come to do it if you all can come of one mind together. And then you really want to present your speech with conviction. You want to sound like you believe exactly what you're saying. And this really comes into that whole delivery aspect that we have talked about with our speeches. We want to make sure you have good vocal variety. We want to make sure that you appear confident. And we want to make sure that people, they feel that goodwill, they understand who you are, and all together this combined with your presentation showing, you know what, I really am convicted about what I'm talking about. People can think that guy is credible. I think I can listen to that person and I believe what they're saying. A second thing you can do to build up your persuadability with an audience, so to speak, is to use evidence. And these are those source materials we've been talking about all through the class. You want to be able to provide statistics or examples or testimony that really help to shape your argument. So we're giving supporting materials that prove the points you're trying to make, and they back up the statements, the assertions that you're giving in your speech. When you're using evidence, you want to be specific. You only want to use examples or statistics or testimony that pertain exactly to what you're talking about. You want to use the newest information and statistics so that people can say, okay, this is information that's happening now or most recently. It pertains to my situation. This isn't information that came out 100 years ago. And for people that really have nothing to do with me. You want to use information from sources that are credible themselves. You know, you can build up all of your own internal credibility, but if your sources aren't credible, then you're going to have kind of a problem there. And then you want to explain how and why the evidence proves your points. You don't want to just like lay out a bunch of facts. Here's why you should do this, fact, fact, fact. You have to explain why those facts then prove your point. So the facts, you know, don't always speak for themselves, as you sometimes hear people say. Sometimes you have to speak for them. Then a third thing that we do when we're trying to persuade people is use reasoning. And this is drawing conclusions based on evidence that you've presented. So when you're presenting your evidence, then you have to, like I said, you have to explain a lot of times, and a lot of times that explanation involves using logic. The conclusions that you're drawing must be logical in order for people to be persuaded. There are a lot of ways that you can do this. You can reason from specific instances, like using an example. So if you're giving an example, we can say, well, because it happened in this case, we can infer then that for you, we can expect similar results. We can reason from principles, which is basically using or talking about beliefs. You can say, I believe in such and such and such and such. If you also believe in such and such and such and such, then logically it must infer that you should be doing what I'm asking you to do, or thinking what I'm asking you to think. We can use causal reasoning, which basically informs a relationship between the things you're talking about. There is a cause and there is an effect. If people are having an issue and you're trying to get them to take action or to buy a product, you know, if you have this cause, if you have this problem and it's caused by this, the effect that I'm hoping that you'll take, whether it's an action or a product I want you to buy, you know, there is a relationship. This effect can be countered by what I'm trying to get you to do. And then we can have analogical reasoning, or basically we're talking about analogies, which compares two things and makes an inference. You know, we can say that one thing is like another. So if you are involved in this one thing, then you would likely be involved with the other thing. Or if you believe in this one belief, then if this belief is tied to this belief, then you should also believe in that second one. Hopefully you all have studied analogies in the past, if you've been through high school or some other college classes. If you have difficulty with analogies, let me know and we can talk about it a little bit further. All right, now when we talk about persuasion, one thing we really always need to talk about is faulty reasoning. And that is when we talk about fallacies, fallacious reasoning. This is when we try to make things appear logical, but really they're not. And a lot of people who try to sell you products or ideas or get you to vote for them or to think certain ways, they can present faulty reasoning that sounds like it makes sense, but it really shouldn't if you think harder about it. And so I want you, as we talk about some of these fallacies, to think about examples that you've dealt with watching television or watching videos, reading things on the internet, talking to other people. I promise you hear things like this every day, and you probably didn't realize that there was an actual category for it and that it is a actual form of faulty thinking. The more you get involved with identifying fallacious thinking in your life, the more you can identify it and go, aha, you're trying to manipulate me. I see what you're doing there. I'm not going to go for it. I want to think logically. So first thing we're going to talk about is called a hasty generalization. And that happens when a speaker jumps to a conclusion with an effect based on a small sample. An easy example of this might be, everybody in my family likes oatmeal. My mom does, my dad does, my brother does, my husband does. I think everybody likes oatmeal. So, if I want to sell everybody oatmeal, it shouldn't be hard because they already like it. My small sample, which is my family, everybody likes it. If I expose that or extrapolate that to the broader population, you all know not everybody likes oatmeal. I can't just look at my own family and be like, everybody's like this, because they're not. So we're taking a small sample and making a judgment that is really false, but I jumped to a hasty generalization, basically. A false cause is when one thing happens after another, but it's presented mistakenly as if that first thing caused the second thing to happen. Let's say that at our campus, all the girls and women decide, hey, you know what, it's really cool, knee socks. We're all going to start wearing shorts and skirts and wearing knee socks, all brightly colored knee socks, because it's hip, it's happening right now. And we all keep taking our classes, but for some reason, on the whole, grades start to fall. And the administrators at Georgia Military College were like, wait a minute. First, all the women started wearing colorful knee socks, and then the grades started to go down. The grades are going down because of this knee sock thing. We need to stop people from wearing knee socks. It sounds silly, right? But there are a lot of people who kind of jump to a conclusion that way, where they're saying, oh, this happened, and then this happened. They must be connected. They're probably not connected. It's probably something else, but the knee sock thing is visible and it appears to be cause and effect. It's not. That's a false cause. Okay, the next type of fallacy is called an invalid analogy. That's when we have two things that we compare. And because some things are alike, we assume that everything about them is alike. And that's just not true. For example, we might know Mary and Sue, and they are two stay-at-home moms. And Mary drives a minivan everywhere she goes. And so we're like, well, Mary and Sue are both stay-at-home moms. Mary drives a minivan. I bet Sue drives a minivan too. They're just alike. We can't just assume that just because some things have similar qualities, that everything about them then is the same. All right, moving along. We have some more fallacies here for you. This is, I think, one of my favorite ones. It's called the bandwagon. And it's thinking that because everyone is doing it, then it's the right thing to do. It gets its name because back in the old days, during elections, a candidate would get on a bandwagon, an actual wagon, sometimes pulled with a horse in the very olden days, but then later pulled by a truck or a car. And the candidate will be on the back, and it will be all decorated up with signs saying vote for candidate. And as it drove or rode around the city, if you were for that candidate, you would jump up on the bandwagon with the candidate and wave at everybody so everybody could see who was siding with that candidate. You would jump on the bandwagon, literally. So this is thinking that because everyone's doing it, if you look up on the bandwagon and it's full of people, you're like, wow, all of my neighbors are for that candidate. Everybody must be for that candidate. He must be really good if all of those people are voting for him. And it's not just about voting. It's, you know, if all of your friends are playing the same game or everybody's wearing the same clothes, you know, oh, that must be the right way to dress right now, or that game must be really awesome if everybody's doing it. Well, we've all been in a situation, though, where we thought everybody was doing something, and then you try it and you're like, ugh, I don't like that at all. So just because everybody seems to be doing it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. The next type of fallacy is called the red herring. It's kind of weird, but basically it's when you have an irrelevant issue that you bring up in the middle of an argument to basically distract the audience from the actual issue that's at hand. It happens quite a lot in political or business debates where the person who's talking is like, ugh, I really don't want to talk about this anymore because it's going to make me look bad, or it's going to bring up things I don't want to be brought up. So I'm going to bring up this totally seemingly different issue. It might seem similar, but it's going to knock everybody. So they're thinking about the other issue now. It's bringing up something that's irrelevant, but everyone's then going to focus on that and not what we were talking about. So if we're talking about taxes, for example, and my opponent looks at me and says, well, you know what? You're totally for raising taxes. Nobody likes to have their taxes raised, and you're just going to cause issues. Well, I might actually be for raising taxes, but do I want to talk about it at length here? Maybe I have before, maybe I know it's not politically expedient. And so I bring up a total side. I might be like, well, I hear what you're saying, but why should we believe you? Because you are for basically shutting down voting booths around the area. You don't want people to choose who to vote for. You know, how can you talk about me when you were talking about that? And I want people to now start talking about closing off making voting restrictions, closing down voting booths and polls. I want people to start thinking about that and not about my tax issue. And it works surprisingly in a lot of ways. Mine was kind of wonky. If you're a politician, you get super subtle about it, where once you start watching it and you hear somebody talking about one thing, but then they suddenly sidle to a different issue, and now they're all talking about that second issue, they were throwing in a red herring, is probably what happened. A next type of fallacy is called an ad hominem attack, basically. It's where you attack the person instead of the issue that they're talking about. So we can say, you know, Sue is a candidate and she is all upset about voting booths and polling places in the district where she's running being closed down. And so she's arguing with Bob, who is her opponent. And Bob, he's like, ugh, you know, maybe he knows he's doing it and he knows it's not politically a good thing to do, but he needs to basically throw out a red herring. And he also needs to discredit Sue. So what does he do? He basically is going to attack her and not necessarily her argument. Why should we listen to Sue? She doesn't have a college degree. What does she know about politics anyway? You know, why should we be listening to her? You know, it doesn't matter if Sue has a college degree, if she's running for office, or it really shouldn't. She might be totally correct. And a lot of people might be very justifiably upset at the closing of polling places in her district. He's trying basically to throw aspersions on her character, on her credibility, rather than talking about the issue itself. All right. Got a couple more. There's a whole lot of fallacies. And I think, honestly, this is one of the most interesting parts of our whole course. I'm always kind of sad that it comes up toward the end, because this is information you can use every day. All right, the either or argument basically makes people choose between two things or just a few things when there are all sorts of gray in between alternatives available. Well, you know, we can either everybody wears masks everywhere they go, or we don't make anybody wear a mask at any time. Those are the two options we have to look at. And, you know, if you are for all the masks all the time, I think people are going to be really coming up in arms with you. We have to be the exact other way. There are more than those two options. You know, maybe people wear masks at certain times or certain places. Maybe, you know, some people wear them, but not everybody does. There are other options in there besides everybody all the time and nobody nowhere. Make sense? All right. The next type of fallacy is called a slippery slope. And this happens when a candidate or a speaker basically says that if you take a few initial steps in the direction of something, it's going to lead to more and more progress on that until you have just a huge problem. You're basically making it inevitable that this huge problem is going to happen because you're starting with these couple of small things. You know, if you start giving kids, you know, soda when they're little, if you give them little sugary treats from time to time, before long, that's all they're going to want. They're just going to jump right into junk food. They're going to stop eating vegetables and fruits altogether. And the next thing you know, we have this huge obesity and diabetes problem on our hands. Which the answer, it doesn't have to be that way. You know, just because a child might drink some sodas and they might have some sugary snacks, if their parents are very moderate about it, that doesn't mean that they're all going to be obese and have diabetes when they're older. So just saying that a couple of weird steps will lead to something inevitable, that's called the slippery slope, and it doesn't always apply. We can appeal to tradition, which means that the things we've always done, the things that we've done traditionally, are just better than the new ways that we're seeing to now. Well, such and such we did in the past was successful. You know, why are we trying something new when we know that this older thing is tried and true? You know, why do we even need to make the effort? On the flip side, we have an appeal to novelty. And that's when we say that something is new, so it has to be better than something that's old and old-fashioned. You know, you can stick to your old technology, but this technology is new. And so that automatically means it's just better because it's bright, shiny, new. Everybody likes things that are new. Why even use something that's a couple of years old when you could have new? That's the appeal to novelty. Whew, that was a lot of fallacies. So we're going to jump now to the next way to persuade people, and it is by appealing to your audience's emotions. And this is probably the easiest one to understand because persuasion is all about emotions. We want people to feel things if we want to be able to persuade them. There are all different things we can try to make people feel to get them to do what we want them to do or to think what we want them to think. And that can involve fear, compassion, pride, anger, guilt, or reverence. You know, as long as we, for example, want people to feel pride, we want them to give back to their high school. We want them to pledge to fund it with finances, but also volunteer. We want them to take pride. We want them to feel pride in their high school so that they give and they support the students who are on fund development endeavors and things like that. Anger, you know, this is happening in our area. I'm angry about it. I want you to be angry about it too. We're going to take that kind of tone, and all of the things we talk about are going to be, we're going to make them sound just outrageous so that people feel angry that it's happening. And so I can convince you to do what I want you to do. There's always an emotion that we can exploit. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but that we can use to help make our case when we're trying to persuade. Now, ways that we appeal to emotions, we can use emotional language, you know, specific action verbs, for example, or adjectives that appeal to make people feeling angry or sad or fearful. We can use vivid examples, very good description in them that are easy to visualize so people can imagine themselves in those situations and they can feel what somebody in those situations would feel. We also can speak with sincerity and conviction. Remember that credibility we talked before? If we speak as if we're completely confident and credible in what we're talking about, that shows sincerity, it shows conviction, and that can be very persuasive when combined with this emotional appeal that we're making. All right, would you believe that is the last of the new content we're going to be studying for our class? From here on out, we're going to be reviewing, we're going to be perfecting, making sure you all become experts at all the information related to public speaking. This doesn't mean, like I said, this is your last video. I'm strongly thinking about putting another one up next week, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, we do need to talk about your upcoming assignments. I'm going to go ahead and give you the information for your persuasive speech assignment. It's in a couple of weeks, granted, but no time like the present to be thinking about it. You have 2 other speeches in the meantime, though. You've got your special occasion speech and your impromptu speech. So don't put any of them on the back burner, but just keep them aware in your head and start at least thinking about what you're going to be speaking about with your persuasive speech. So here we go. The outline and the presentation will both be due and happening on Tuesday, May 24th. You'll be turning in the outline, as we have been doing, into the Moodle link by noon that day on the 24th, but then you'll be presenting live and in class on that Tuesday, the 24th. And your persuasive speech topic will be something you want us to do or something you want us to take action about. It can be super serious, or it cannot be super serious. Maybe you want us all to try a cool new game. Maybe you want us to try your favorite kind of cereal. Maybe you want us, though, to volunteer to help with voting rights campaigns. You know, maybe that's something serious you want us to do. Maybe you want us to join a club. It can be anything that you believe in that you want us to do or take action about. Gotcha. So this speech should be 6 to 8 minutes long. And I know this is a jump from the previous couple, but it's finally time to have our long speech. This is going to be, you know, our major speech of the term. And it needs to have at least 3 sources of information in your bibliography with verbal citations in your speech. And all those sources need to be listed in the bibliography. I think I said that twice, but that's how important it is. It needs to be in your bibliography. You need to have a bibliography. That's just it. So be thinking about something you want us to do, other students in our class, or something you want us to take action about. And taking action usually implies doing something. So they're kind of the same thing, but you know, it's either, you know, you have an idea that you can combine with an action or something you just want us to do. That's fine. You can make it as easy or as hard as you like. I am not going to be like, well, such and such was super pertinent and thrilling, and such was kind of flip. No, I just want to make sure you do a good speech. So that's coming up. That's toward the end. And in fact, the 24th is the last day of our class. We will not see each other after that date. It'll be sad. Don't forget, with your special occasion speech assignment coming up Tuesday, it needs to be 4 to 6 minutes long, no more, no less. So practice and time it. You need to use at least one, count them, one visual aid. I don't care what kind of visual aid, but you need one. It's going to be done in class on the 10th. And your preparation outline will be turned in that same day, but at noon on the 10th. And everybody will be assigned one other person in class at random to critique. You will fill out a form that I will give you and just answer questions while you're listening to the speech. It shouldn't be too difficult. You'll turn those forms in by the end of that class. So it's not like you're going to take the form home and then fill it out and bring it back. It's something, you know, I have to judge all of y'all's speeches all the time very quickly. And it helps you kind of see what you're looking for when you're listening to a speaker. It helps you be a good critic, which is a good skill to have. All right. Ta-da! That is the end of this Friday video. You have a lot to do this weekend. I know you do. You're listening to this video, which is awesome. Take your test, get your special occasion speech all worked out. It's a lot. Like I said, call, text, email me if you need anything. I'm here to help you. I am going to be out of town, so I might not get your email like right away, but I check my emails quite often. I will get it. I wish you all a lot of luck. I'm looking so forward to seeing all of your speeches in person this next Tuesday. In the meantime, you be safe, and I'll see you later.